I was murdered by Song Chang'en's first love and thrown into the bottom of a lake. If he won't agree to a divorce, then I'll just make him a widower. The truth is, Song Chang'en had already asked for a divorce because of her. Xiao Man, the princess has done me a great favor. You should be understanding. I told him that if we divorced, I would die. He frowned with disgust and told me not to lie just to manipulate him. But I wasn't lying. This was a rule set by the system. The day of our divorce would be the day of my death. A few days later, a heavily decomposed, unidentified female corpse was fished out of the lake. Song Chang'en, Assistant Minister of the Court of Judicial Review, personally requested to investigate the case. At the riverside, a crowd of curious onlookers had gathered. Tisk, TSK. Which poor young lady ended up like this? What a tragedy. Her face is completely ruined. She must have suffered terribly before she died. My ghost stood among them, staring at my own body with the others. Thinking back on the endless torture I'd endured before death, I couldn't help but shiver. Make way. Several government officers pushed through the crowd, clearing a path. Song Chang'en appeared in a black official robe, his face cold and expressionless. He knelt beside my corpse. He was not only the assistant minister but also my husband. A flicker of hope stirred in my heart. Would he recognize me? Take her back. There are many suspicious points in this case, and the victim's identity remains unknown. After more than 10 years together, he looked me in the face and didn't recognize me. So heartless. Just then, the princess's maid came running over in a panic. Lord Song. The princess had a heart episode. She fainted. Song Chang'en's face changed instantly. He quickly pulled the white cloth over my body, gave a few brief instructions, and left in a hurry. The princess was the one he truly cared about. The wind by the river was piercing cold, sweeping through my ghostly form. I asked the system, when can I pass on? When your injustice is fully redressed, you may ascend to the afterlife. Your husband is quite capable. He should uncover the truth soon and clear your name. I shook my head and sighed. Even if he finds out it was the princess, he still won't be willing to accept it. Looks like I'm going to be a wandering ghost forever. Song Chang'en didn't return until late that night. No doubt he had stayed to comfort Shinji until she fell asleep before coming back to the court. I followed him into the mortuary and watched him examine my corpse under candlelight. Where's my wife? Still upset with me. Because of Shinji, I hadn't seen him in a long time. He always thought I was just avoiding him. Madam went back to Renan village. She should be returning soon, the guard answered quietly, then asked if he should find another coroner. Why find another coroner? Because I was the only one who handled postmortems at Song Chang'en's side. For autopsies, I only trust Xiao Man. From the day I joined the court, we had solved countless cold cases together. He always spoke highly of my skills. But now, there was no way I could rise from the dead and demonstrate my methods again. 3 of my ribs were broken. My lower leg was shattered. All 10 fingers were fractured. My abdomen was filled with poison. My face had been slashed by dozens of blades. After prolonged torture, I was finally drowned. In the end, Song Chang'en still called in an older coroner. The man arrived in a rush and hadn't expected the body to have suffered so much abuse. He hadn't brought enough tools and hesitantly asked if he could borrow my equipment. After a moment's silence, Song Chang'en had someone fetch my toolbox. As the old coroner dissected me using my own tools, he couldn't stop praising their craftsmanship. From the large bone-cutting knives to the fine feather brushes, every piece had been handmade by Song Chang'en. Back then, we barely had enough to eat, let alone money for proper tools. So he would collect scraps from the blacksmith shop, beg the smith to melt them together, then bring them home to slowly grind and polish by hand. To make them look nice, he even carved patterns into the wooden handles. Later, he gave me many finely made knives, but none felt as good in my hand as the old ones. Because these were made by him, I cherished them deeply. Until he pricked his fingers to make a kite for the princess, all for the sake of a casual joke. The princess deserves the best, so the best must be made by hand. As he worked on the bamboo frame, Thinking of the girl he had once adored, Song Chang'en's expression softened noticeably. The old coroner gave a detailed report of his findings. Sadly, aside from confirming the victim had been tortured, nothing else was discovered. After dismissing the coroner, Song Chang'en immediately sent someone to bring me home from Renan village. He handed the guard a letter and a bag of fruit candies. Xiaoman has a child's heart. Bring these sweets to her, too. How ridiculous. I cursed at him. You just want me back to help you solve your case. Too bad, I'm dead now. Besides, the old coroner already did his best. Your precious princess sure knows how to clean up her mess. Even if I had done the autopsy, the result would have been the same. Song Chang'en and I were childhood sweethearts. He was the prodigious scholar's son next door, a genius praised by everyone. I was the unlucky girl who worked at a funeral parlor. Because I studied autopsy work with my grandfather, I was bullied by the village children, and even the adults avoided me like the plague. Only Song Chang'en, who lived alone with his father, never bullied me. He often helped chase away the kids who threw stones at me. My father says, earning a living with your skills is nothing to be ashamed of. It's not unlucky either. Mr. Song was a good man, always proper and scholarly, and he raised his son to be the same. Later, Mr. Song was beaten to death by a gang on the street. Song Chang'en watched his father die right in front of him. My grandfather and I collected Mr. Song's body and brought Song Chang'en home with us. Xiaoman, your brother Song has a bright future. We can't let it go to waste. Grandfather sold our pigs and ducks, gritted his teeth, and bought the best books for Song Chang'en. He even pulled strings to get him into a private school. Xiaoman, I'll repay you both someday. I swear it. Later, grandfather passed away. Song Chang'en was about to head to the capital for the imperial exams, so I brought out the money my grandfather had left for him. Xiaoman, where did you get so much money? A whole bag of shining silver, enough to ensure he'd have food and clothing all the way. I was honest with him. I told him the princess gave it to me. When Mr. Song died, the young princess had been passing by in a carriage and heard Song Chang'en crying his heart out. She felt sympathy and gave us the money. She also paid for your father's funeral expenses. The princess, she's truly a kind person. Holding that money, Song Chang'en's eyes flickered. From that moment on, the princess became his ideal, the one he placed on a pedestal. These days, the princess had frequent heart episodes, and Song Chang'en had to run back and forth between her and his work. Shunji leaned weakly against her bed, gazing at him with soft, tender eyes as he fed her spoonfuls of medicine. After every spoonful, he would slip her a piece of candy. The sweet fruit flavor washed away all bitterness instantly. That trick had always worked on me, without fail. Chang'en, even if I cannot be your wife, having you care for me like this before I die, I can leave this world in peace. She let out a soft cough as she finished, the snow-white handkerchief blooming with crimson blood. Shunji had the beauty of a flower and the pallor of illness, which only made her more pitiful and cherished. Of course, Song Chang'en immediately panicked. Princess, you must live a long and healthy life. I've already discussed divorce with my wife. Really? Shunji instantly perked up. She hadn't expected the man who once swore eternal devotion would actually be willing to leave his wife for her.
Yes.
Once Xiaoman returns home, I'll speak with her again. In that case, why not just issue a divorce now? Seeing he had already sent someone to find me in my hometown, Shunji froze for a moment, then pressed him further. She knew full well that Song Chang'en would never get that divorce letter from me. She had thought everything was airtight. She'd even tied stones to my corpse to make sure I'd sink forever. Who could have guessed a sudden flood upstream would send rocks crashing down, slicing through the ropes and allowing my body to be recovered? Fate had somehow intervened, alerting Song Chang'en, who was always meticulous in investigations. Shunji flushed, waiting anxiously for his answer. Yes, I wanted to ask too, if you were already planning to divorce me, why not just do it and spare us all the trouble? Song Chang'en gently set the jade porcelain bowl down and bowed deeply to the princess. I cannot. Xiaoman has done nothing wrong. It's I who have failed her. I stood beside him, watching Song Chang'an, and found it all laughably absurd. I did nothing wrong. So, why was I the one who had to suffer all the humiliation and pain?
So he didn't know he owed me.
What a hypocrite. Shun Ji clearly wasn't satisfied with this answer. You're the youngest top scholar in years, a rising star in court. She's just a coroner, reeking of death. Hardly a match for you. People already criticize you enough. Keeping her by your side will only hinder your future. Even if I don't have much time left, if we marry, at least it'll be a proper union in the eyes of society. Song Chang'an paused, then rose again to bow. My background had always been a source of mockery for him among our colleagues. No official's wife was someone who grew up exposed to corpses, handling the dead. It was the kind of thing even commoners avoided, let alone aristocrats. But back then, Song Chang'an would always respond without hesitation. My wife is the best coroner in the land. She clears the innocent and upholds the law. Which of you men can compare to her? With her courage and character, even I feel unworthy. If anything, I'm the one not good enough for her. Just like what he'd said when we got married, right before he left for the capital exams. To marry a wife like this, 3 lifetimes of good fortune. But now, the woman he had idolized for years was saying the same things as those who had always insulted me. I was curious, how would the eloquent and sharp-tongued Song Chang'an respond now? To be favored by the princess. I'm truly unworthy. Shun Ji smiled, tears brimming in her eyes. Moved, she actually called him Song Lang in front of the servants. He didn't say a single word in my defense. Every word, every gesture, was to preserve Shun Ji's dignity and reputation. In front of her, he silently agreed that I was vulgar, unlucky, and disgusting. I asked the system if I could just ascend to the afterlife early. I really didn't want to see any more of this. Nope, that's not allowed. This is how your story is set up. What if there's a twist coming? Furious, I pointed to Song Chang'an, who was fawning over the princess. You really think this lovesick dog is going to clear my name? You think he's really going to go after his precious first love? The system stayed silent for a long time. It probably didn't believe it either. Finally, it responded in a flat mechanical tone. If he hasn't brought you justice within 5 days, the system will apply for additional benefits on your behalf. The first time Song Chang'an met Shinji was at the housewarming banquet of our new home. Back then, he had just topped the imperial exam list. He was the brightest star in the capital. Many came to offer their congratulations. With his hair tied high and dressed in a silver-white robe, he looked even more distinguished than noble sons of great families. Shao man, don't be afraid. I'm here. He held my hand tightly and faced the crowd with confidence. Every gesture was thoughtful, every word gentle. Everyone could see how this rising official treasured his wife. A lady had quietly asked me how I managed to train such a good husband. Embarrassed, I lowered my head and replied that he had always been like this. I even felt a bit proud. Just as everyone was sighing with envy and admiration, the princess arrived. Recently, there had been a murder case at her residence, and Song Chang'an had immediately sent people to investigate. Normally, a servant jumping into a well wouldn't warrant involvement from the Court of Judicial Review. But every brick and tile of the princess's manor seemed to matter especially to Song Chang'an. Shinji wore a gown of golden-purple brocade, her hair adorned with pearl and jade hairpins. Her bearing was noble and elegant, every glance and movement divine. Her beauty was renowned far and wide. She glanced around the room and finally smiled in a certain direction. My heart skipped a beat. I turned to look at Song Chang'an, who was entertaining guests in that direction. Just like everyone else, there was a flash of amazement in his eyes. And right then, I heard the system's warning alarm ring in my ears. Target's heart is wavering, relationship stability is at risk. It was warning me not to let the bond between us break, or I would die. I'll admit, I panicked the moment that alarm went off. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was just afraid of hearing it say, loud and clear, Song Chang'an no longer loved me. After that, The princess often invited Song Chang'an to her residence under the pretense of being afraid of the death that had occurred there. Frankly, I found such a ridiculous excuse completely incomprehensible. If she's really scared, she could have just hired a Taoist priest to exorcise the spirits. The Court of Judicial Review handles injustice, not ghosts. Since taking office, Song Chang'an had solved many major cases. His Majesty valued him highly and even entrusted him to reopen several old, unsolved cases. He was already working tirelessly, barely setting foot on the ground, and yet he still made time every day to personally visit the princess's manor. Xiao Man, don't be so narrow-minded. The princess has been weak and frail since childhood. Being a bit timid is perfectly normal. If our presence from the court helps put her mind at ease, isn't that a good thing? He frowned slightly, clearly displeased that I would speak about the princess that way. Perhaps knowing he was in the wrong, he stepped forward and gently embraced me. The princess helped me when I needed it most. If not for her kindness, I wouldn't have had the money to travel to the capital for the exams. Xiao Man, people should know how to be grateful, don't you think? I shoved him away and sneered coldly. Song Chang'an, you know perfectly well whether this is gratitude or a secret affair. He froze, not expecting me to say it so directly, and his expression darkened. Don't talk nonsense. I already have a wife. The princess is a virtuous woman. Our relationship is pure. Xiao Man, have I spoiled you too much? You've become jealous and suspicious to the point of absurdity. You've truly disappointed me. Without waiting for me to respond, he turned, threw on his cloak, and left. Outside, snow was falling heavily. He was headed to the princess's residence. That night, he never came home. The system alarm went off again, but by now I was used to it. The last time it rang was when Song Chang'an proposed a divorce. He hadn't come home that night either, because the princess had finally confessed her feelings to him. She told him she loved him and wanted to marry him before she died. He didn't agree right away, but when he returned, he was absent-minded and hesitant, often on the verge of saying something but stopping himself, until the princess collapsed again. She's gravely ill and may not have much time left. This is her only wish. Xiao Man, I beg you. I was foolish then. I actually felt pity for the princess's tragic fate. Faced with Song Chang'an's desperate plea, I relented. Then let her be a secondary wife, like me. At that, Song Chang'an fell silent. After a long pause, he finally spoke. The princess is of noble birth. How could she be a mere secondary wife? I stared at him, unable to believe those words had come from his mouth. He had once promised never to cast me aside, to stay with me until the end of our days. Now, all it took was a comment about status for him to consider discarding me so easily. Is that your idea, or the princess's? Does she want to be your only wife? I asked with a forced smile, tears falling uncontrollably down my cheeks. Song Chang'an's heart seemed to ache for me. He gently wiped away my tears. Xiao Man, the princess helped me in my time of need. I just want her final moments to be peaceful. Xiao Man, please try to understand. If we divorce, I will die. According to the system's rules, I would die, without a known cause. The tenderness in Song Chang'an's eyes vanished. How can you joke about something as serious as life and death? Once the princess passes, I will immediately restore your status as my wife. After that, you'll be my one and only. I wasn't lying. The truth was, I was murdered by the princess. But he didn't believe me. He thought I was being irrational and dramatic. Even after I was kidnapped and killed by the princess, he still believed I had just run off to my hometown in a fit of anger. A guard rushed in, reporting that my corpse had vanished. The mighty Court of Judicial Review can't even keep track of a single corpse? Enraged, Song Chang'an ordered a full search of the entire premises.
Of course they wouldn't find me.
While Song Chang'an was tending to the princess, chatting and feeding her medicine, someone from her residence had already infiltrated the court disguised as a kitchen worker. The room where corpses were stored wasn't heavily guarded, especially when he wasn't around. Patrols were reduced too. Besides, no one had come to claim my body, and my face was unrecognizable. As an unidentified corpse, I was destined for a mass grave. No one paid much attention. My body was stuffed into a burlap sack, disguised as kitchen waste, and smuggled out with ease. Luckily, not everyone at the court was negligent. Someone quickly noticed something odd. A supply cart from the kitchen had clearly been tampered with. The wheel tracks had the unique markings of the court's equipment. With a body and added weight, the wheel left distinct impressions. They sprinkled flour on the ground and followed the tracks, soon locating the culprits. The thieves confessed. They dumped the body in the river. All three bit off their tongues and killed themselves. These were the items found on them, which may help identify who they are. Several coin pouches were neatly laid out on the wooden table. At that moment, it was as if lightning struck Song Chang-in. He stood frozen, limbs stiff. His gaze locked onto the knot tied on one of the pouches. A rarely used wheat ear knot, exactly the same as the ones used by the guards at the princess's residence. A faceless corpse. A deliberate attempt by the princess to block the investigation. Countless thoughts crashed over him, and Song Chang-in trembled. He forced himself to breathe steadily and lifted his head, voice hoarse and eyes reddened. "Where is my wife now? Find her. Bring her back." I asked the system whether my body would just rot at the bottom of the river, food for fish and shrimp. This time, Shinji had been careful. She tied nearly 200 pounds of stones to my body. With that kind of weight, I might never surface again. Even if Song Chang-in sent half the court to drag the river, it wouldn't help. "Nope, we'll make sure to return your body to your husband. He must bring you justice, no matter what." 3 days later, my corpse was recovered from the river. It was exactly as it had been before. Song Chang-in kept the discovery secret, transporting the body in silence to the hidden cellars of the court. There, he insisted on performing the autopsy himself. Having lived with my family for years, he had picked up some of my grandfather's skills. For the sake of his reputation, grandfather never let him practice publicly, so I handled all the grim work. Now, scalpel in hand, he examined what the old coroner had already inspected. With few untouched areas remaining, Song Chang-in chose to cut from beneath the sternum. I watched as he sliced, his expression stoic, but sweat poured from his forehead and his breath grew shallow. Only here, only this area, could confirm my identity. And he remembered. When his hand brushed over my misshapen, protruding rib, the truth became obvious. In moments of passion, he used to kiss that very spot, murmuring "Shao Man" in that low, magnetic voice. It was a scar I'd gotten when I was 8, saving him from a fall. He had never forgotten. "Shao Man, Shao Man." The scalpel slipped from his hand. Song Chang-in staggered, all his mental defenses collapsing the moment he saw the 2 bone pins beneath the skin. Tears welled in his peach blossom eyes and fell like torrential rain. In the damp, empty dungeon, only the sound of his quiet sobs echoed. "Your husband does seem truly heartbroken." The system sighed, then added with scorn, "Serves him right." I shrugged and walked over to stand beside Song Chang-in, who was sobbing uncontrollably over my corpse. "Exactly," I said. "He kept my death a secret. That very night, he burned my body. Then, he never asked about me again, pretended I had simply gone back to my hometown and hadn't returned. He moved back and forth between the court and the princess's manor like nothing had ever happened. Look at him, I said to the system. He even destroyed the evidence for her. Ask the system again to let me pass on. I had utterly and completely failed this mission. Song Chang-in hadn't stepped foot in my courtyard for a long time. At first, it was because he was busy after his appointment. He stayed in a spare room at the court. Later, he simply moved everything out so he could be closer to the princess in case she woke in the night. He once said, "Shao Man, once I've repaid my debts, all the time I have will be yours." Back then, I thought if that's the time to come, then I don't want it at all. I followed him into the inner courtyard. The room was as tidy as ever. The maid Qing Huan saw him and looked visibly upset. "My lord, has your princess recovered today?" Is she well enough to have the leisure to visit here? Did you forget the way back to the madam's courtyard? Song Chang'an ignored her sarcasm. He looked around, then pointed at the now empty bedside cabinet. What happened to everything that used to be here? That cabinet used to be full of keepsakes. The calligraphy brush he gave me when I was 8. The bird whistle he bought with a month's worth of herbs when I was 10. And the flower hairpin he gifted me for my coming-of-age ceremony after selling everything of value in his home. I treasured those items and placed them all by the bed just so I could see them first thing every morning. The madam put them away. Since you're so busy, why not take them back with you? Qing Huan pulled a wooden box from beneath the cabinet and handed it to him. She had once asked me why I packed all of those things away. I said, returning them to their rightful owner. So she remembered. She was such a good girl. Song Chang'an took the items out one by one, placing them carefully back onto the cabinet. With each object, his hands trembled a little more. At the bottom lay a small tiger head baby cap. That wasn't something he had given me. That was made by the madam, for the child she never got to meet. Qing Huan said, stepping forward to snatch it away. Song Chang'an wasn't worthy of touching it. A child. When did this happen? For the first time, his pale face showed a flicker of expression. Confusion.
Shock.
There's no child anymore. It was that night, when you went to the princess's residence in the middle of a snowstorm. Qing Huan sneered. She thought his grief was just crocodile tears. That night, the madam was in unbearable pain. I went to find you. You were at the princess's manor, playing the qin to lull her to sleep. What a lovely tune. The phoenix seeks a mate. It turned out Qing Huan had lied to me that day. She never made it inside the princess's residence. The guards forced her to kneel in the snow and listen to the entire piece from outside. The princess's maid even mocked her, telling her the song was called The Phoenix Seeks a Mate, using the qin to express longing, asking when love will be returned, to ease the heart's despair. Due to your husband's wavering affections, the system could no longer sustain the child's life. We regret to inform you that fetal development has been terminated. The doctor said I lost the baby because I was overwhelmed with grief and emotional distress. But I knew the child, born without its father's love, was never fated to survive. After that, Song Chang'an never mentioned divorcing me or marrying someone new. Shenji grew anxious. Despite several attempts, hints, probing, schemes, nothing worked. She didn't understand. Song Chang'an was still gentle and attentive, thoughtful as always. Yet he gave no response on this matter. Cui Yu, what do you think Song Chang'an means by this? After yet another failed attempt, Shenji smashed a teacup once Song Chang'an left. Porcelain shards scattered across the floor, mirroring the malice in her eyes. I flinched instinctively, startled. Then I remembered I was a ghost now. No need to be scared. I sat down calmly. According to the system rules, I could only follow the trace of Song Chang'an's qi. Luckily, he visited the princess's manor 3 times a day. His presence was strong enough for me to linger. Careful, Your Highness. You'll cut your hand. Cui Yu quickly stepped forward to calm her, ordering the maids to clean up the mess. I'm the most beautiful woman in the capital. When have I ever failed? Just a dead little wench from the countryside. What right does she have to keep her dignity? She wouldn't even leave a divorce letter. Shenji, still furious, downed another sip of plum wine. Your Highness, didn't you fall for him because he was loyal to his wife? Because he respected her? You're just one step away and you still can't break through? So that's it. To Shenji, Song Chang'an's loyalty was a kind of conquest.
A game.
The next day, someone knocked on the gate of the Song residence. A man claiming to be from Rinnan village brought a letter. A divorce agreement, signed and sealed in my handwriting. I had written one, but not that one. Still, Song Chang'an clearly believed it was real. He took the letter and rushed to the princess's manor. So stupid. She's playing you like a fiddle, and you're still running to her like some clown. I muttered from the carriage. He couldn't hear me. His eyes remained closed. He sat still, expressionless, showing not a hint of joy. Shall man? Suddenly, a sigh slipped from his lips, and my ghostly form trembled. The air around us fell still. Song Chang'an took out the flower hairpin he had once given me for my coming-of-age ceremony. His fingers gently brushed across its petals. His eyes darkened, and his fingertips trembled. I asked the system, "Can he hear me?" The system sounded annoyed, as though I were questioning its competence. "That's impossible. He can't hear you. Maybe he's just remembering you." "Is that so? What a shame." That very hairpin. Song Chang'an placed it gently into the princess's hair. "Song Lang, I suppose I've finally made it through the storm to see the moonlight." Shunji whispered tearfully, leaning against his shoulder, casting a subtle glance toward Chuiyu. The famously upright and incorruptible assistant minister of the Court of Judicial Review had once again fallen at the feet of a beauty, abandoning his wife and home, willing to humble himself completely for Shinji. In this game of flirtation between the noble women of the capital, Shunji had won once again. Princess Shinji, with her ethereal beauty, had long captivated hearts across the capital. She was a renowned belle among aristocratic circles. But in private, she was the subject of disdain, because behind her facade of grace and refinement, she tangled with countless men. Song Chang'an was just one of many. According to Shinji's plan, she would cut ties with him the very next day. Some things, once obtained, simply lost their appeal. What she truly enjoyed was the thrill of the chase, the itch of unattainable desire. Song Chang'an would become like all the others, tossed aside from the princess's residence the very next day. And she would say, with her usual cool detachment, "So, he fell for me. What's that got to do with me? Foolish obsession." However, the next day, that embarrassment never fell on Song Chang'an. The princess had genuinely fallen ill. She was plagued by nightmares, screaming in fear all night long. Ghosts. Ghosts, there's a ghost. When Song Chang'an arrived, Shinji was huddled in a corner, hair disheveled, clothes a mess. Her eyes were bloodshot like a startled rabbit. Even though maids and guards surrounded her protectively, the slightest sound would send her into a screaming fit. Soon, word began to spread among the servants. The princess was haunted. Nonsense. The princess has a heart as pure as a bodhisattva. How could she be tainted by such filth? Song Chang'an, who had always scoffed at the supernatural, pulled Shinji into his arms and softly comforted her. He forbade anyone from spreading rumors. In those days, he remained at her side constantly, personally tending to her food and clothing. Those hands, once used to judge guilt and innocence, now cleaned her body after her episodes, no matter how filthy. The servants whispered, Lord Song's true feelings were for the princess. Even Chuiyu would sing his praises in front of Shinji whenever she was lucid. Shinji would blush and smile faintly. At least, now I know his feelings are real. But fate is rarely so kind. Shinji's nightmares worsened, and her reliance on Song Chang'an deepened. She even allowed him to stay by her side through the night. After several nights together, her feelings for him had completely changed. Everyone in the manor quietly accepted that Song Chang'an was the future master of the princess's household. Tell me, why hasn't he proposed yet? Does he think I'm no longer the dignified woman I used to be, just some lunatic now? Shunji sat before the mirror, carefully examining her face, as she asked Chuiyu. Though her features were weary, her beauty remained. Every day she applied makeup meticulously, just to look her best when Song Chang'an arrived. She wanted to prove she wasn't the wild, unkempt woman the outside world whispered about. Gone were the flamboyant reds and luxurious robes. She now wore soft, elegant styles from the Jiangnan region. Because Song Chang'an was from the south, she cast aside her noble pride and tried to match his tastes, earning even more of his affection. But still, she dared not cross the final line. Does he still miss that little country girl? Your Highness, that wild girl is already fish food at the bottom of the river. She won't be coming back. Besides, what did she ever have to compete with you? You've been the one in Lord Song's heart for years. Shunji beamed at the flattery and rewarded Chuiyu with a golden hairpin. That very night, Chuiyu used that hairpin to slash Shunji's face. The system had been right. It seemed Song Chang'an truly was avenging me. I watched him soak that flower hairpin in a hallucinogenic potion called Mian Xiang for 3 days and nights. Then, smiling gently, he inserted it into Shunji's hair, telling her to wear it every day. One day of Miyun, nightmares every night. He burned the fake divorce letter, sat in the courtyard hugging the tiger head baby cap and the real divorce letter I had written, and drank all night long. He kept murmuring my name under his breath. The real divorce letter had been given to him by Qing Huan before she left. She didn't know I was dead. She'd been foolishly happy to help me escape my suffering. I only came to the capital to serve the madam. Now that she's gone, I no longer have a reason to stay. She had no contract, no ties. She came and went as she pleased. I saw Song Chang'an meeting with Chuiyu in secret again and again, handing her stacks of old case files. Even the poison on the golden hairpin had been given to Chuiyu by Song Chang'an himself. My brother entered your service at 8 years old and followed you loyally ever since. He solved countless problems for you and had blood on his hands because of it. Did you ever once acknowledge his loyalty? Afraid your secrets would come out, you killed him to silence him. You used my brother's blood to seduce a man. You heartless monster. You deserve to die. Die. Chuiyu pinned Shunji down, slicing cruelly across her once perfect face. She clawed at her hair, screaming questions like a madwoman. The first case Song Chang'an had ever handled for the princess was the death of Chuiyu's brother. I had examined that corpse myself. He was strangled to death, then dumped into a pond to make it look like drowning. At the time, Song Chang'an had said nothing. He let it go, for the princess's sake. Who would have thought he would reopen the case now? Step by step, he had drawn Shunji into a web of gentleness and affection, making her unable to escape. Then he let Chuiyu destroy what she prized most, her beauty, all to break her from the inside out. Now, the princess's manor had been emptied of guards and maids under the excuse of needing a quiet recovery. Song Chang'an stood at the door, calmly watching as Chuiyu carved bloody gashes into Shunji's face. Days of Mian Xiang had left Shunji weak and powerless. Under the moonlight, Song Chang'an's white robes gleamed. He looked like a spotless celestial being, or like a ghostly judge of death. His face was utterly expressionless as Shunji screamed in agony. This was a Song Chang'an I had never seen before. Cold, ruthless, terrifying. Your face is dirty, Your Highness, he said at last as Chuiyu finally stopped. Only then did Song Chang'an step forward, crouching beside her. In the mirror, Shunji's face now resembled a demon, utterly horrifying. Ah! She screamed, clutching his sleeve, tears falling as she demanded to know why he had just stood there watching. This was Song Lang, the man who used to treasure her. Because it was fun. He smiled faintly. That year, when you ordered your men to beat my father to death in the street. Wasn't that just for fun too? Shunji's pupils contracted. She released his sleeve and shook her head in disbelief. No, no. How do you know about that? Ding. Bonus reward from the system. Are you satisfied, host? You let him learn the truth about Mr. Song's death? That's right. Knowing that his beloved first love was both his father's killer and his wife's murderer, this doubled pain and hatred, your husband can endure it. When did you plant that memory in his mind? Right after he confirmed your identity when he performed your autopsy with his own hands. Through the system's reverse playback, I witnessed the full truth of Mr. Song's death. On a bustling street, Mr. Song's calligraphy and paintings were ignored by passers-by. Not far away, a noble's carriage had just passed and stopped at the corner. A servant, on orders from inside, approached the stall to inquire about a scroll of white plum blossoms in snow. That was a keepsake from Mr. Song's late wife. Display only, not for sale. After some back and forth, the servant returned empty-handed. Inside the carriage, the arrogant young master let out a sneer. Just kill him. It's a low-born life anyway. What's he pretending to be so noble for? Remember, break his ribs first, then beat him to death slowly. That's the fun part. When grandfather collected Mr. Song's corpse, he cursed those bastards for their cruelty. Who would have thought that the one behind it all was Shinji? Rumors soon spread through the capital. The once renowned princess had lost her mind and destroyed her own face. The manor that used to overflow with visitors now stood eerily quiet. Some clapped with glee, praising the heavens for their justice and retribution. At that moment, Assistant Minister Song Chang'an submitted a memorial to the emperor, accusing the princess before the imperial court. The charges ranged from the abuse and murder of servants to harming civilians and seducing high-ranking officials. Every crime was listed in painful detail, countless, and impossible to refute. The first charge, attempted murder of a government official's wife. The wife of Assistant Minister Song Chang'an, Liu Xiaoman. The emperor was furious. He ordered the princess's estate raided and stripped Shinji of her noble title, reducing her to a commoner. Shinji had once been the last bloodline of Princing. In the past, no matter how many mistakes she made, the emperor had turned a blind eye out of familial concern. But now, a deranged and disfigured princess was a stain on royal dignity. Song Chang'an's timely accusation gave the court the perfect excuse to erase her from the imperial lineage. The royal family remained spotless. Only Shinji was filthy. The day her estate was raided, a massive fire broke out. Princess Shinji disappeared, rumored to have perished in the flames. But in the Song residence, there was a hidden chamber. It had once been my private autopsy room. Now, it was a prison for the woman who had once been the most beautiful in the capital, Shinji. Her hair was streaked with white, her face permanently ruined. The hairpin shui you used had been laced with deadly poison. Her wounds would never heal. Purple-black scars twisted across her skin, covered in crusted scabs. Every month on the 15th, the scabs would fall off and regrow the following month. Each time, the pain was bone-deep, soul-crushing. Every day, Song Chang'an would come to check if she was still alive. He had staged the fire, so Shinji could disappear from the world in name only. But he wouldn't let her die so easily. "Your Highness, we promised to grow old together. You mustn't break your word." He mirrored every cruel torment I had suffered, inflicting it on Shinji piece by piece. It was as if only when she screamed in agony each night could Song Chang'an find a shred of peace. "Congratulations, host. Your husband has avenged you. You may now return home." The system's prompt rang out. I felt a flood of mixed emotions. I could finally pass on. No longer would I have to see Song Chang'an sobbing through the night, clutching my belongings, heartbroken beyond repair. "Xiaoman, I was wrong. Do you hate me that much? Is that why you won't even visit me in my dreams?" He whispered my name with bloodshot eyes as he spoke those words. I was sitting right beside him, but he couldn't see me. The system said if I forgave him, it could arrange a farewell meeting in a dream. I refused. Shinji may be detestable, but does that mean Song Chang'an is blameless? His uncontrollable feelings were real. So was his betrayal. And his selfish longing for tenderness, dressed up as noble repayment, that, too, was real. Now he tortures Shinji only because he finally has a righteous excuse. He's just using that to bury his own guilt. Why should I forgive him? What's wrong is wrong. No matter how hard he tries to make up for it, it's just a cover-up for his sins. A year after the fire at the princess's manor, Assistant Minister Song Chang'an was assassinated. Stabbed multiple times, he died from his wounds. Shinji was rescued from the hidden chamber by remnants of Prince Ying's faction. By then, she was blind, her limbs crippled. At the mass grave, a beggar found a broken hairpin on a male corpse, split in two by a sword. Epilogue. Song Chang'an followed a beam of light to a mirror. In its reflection was the face of the woman he had longed for, day and night. "Xiaoman," in his ears, the voice of the system spoke. "The host has entered her next life. This time, she's very happy. A cottage in the mountains, leisure, peace, and a partner who cherishes her. Can I see her again? Song Chang'an asked anxiously, with countless words still left unsaid. Nope, she said. Cheaters can't be redeemed. Scumbags don't deserve forgiveness. You're about to begin your new life, one she personally requested for you. It's called The Lovesick Fool. The end.